Well, welcome everyone. Great to see you here for our second issue of our weekly webinar for the Mobile Learning Special Interest Group for ASCILITE, and great to have a whole range of people here this morning. So yeah, I'd like you just to go around and introduce yourselves. Maybe I'll give you a cue just so everyone doesn't start talking over everyone else. I'll just do it by order of who's on my screen. So we've got Vikal.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, my name is Vikal. I'm from University of Sydney, but I was at Auckland University of Technology with Tom for many years. So I made the move last year, and I'm part of the SIG. Have been from the start.
Thank you, Vikal. And Lisa?
Sorry, I was muted. So I'm Lisa Ransom from Auckland University of Technology, and I've worked with both Vikal and Tom. I'm in the Learning Technologies support area, but also an instructional designer.
Next on my screen, I have Paul Wiseman.
Hi, I'm Paul. I'm a PhD student at MCSHE at the University of Melbourne, looking at student engagement in online digital learning environments. Yeah, I think that sums it up.
Cool, thank you. Next I've got on my screen is Meredith.
Hi, I'm Meredith HyunSeok. I'm from the Faculty of Arts at Melbourne University. I manage e-learning, e-teaching for the faculty, so managing a little team of kind of edtech type people. So we're supporting just the humanities disciplines with learning technology, videography. We have a loans equipment office, so quite often lending out sets of iPads and things and designing activities that students do in classrooms and things.
Cool. Okay, Neil Cowie.
Oh, hi everybody. I'm from Okayama University in Japan, and I'm an English teacher, and we've just got to the end of our first week of online experience, and it's been very interesting and challenging, but yeah, gone well.
And next I have Paul Goldacre.
So I'm Paul number 2. I'm the team lead for we call it the Enhancing Student Experience team at University of Queensland's Faculty of Engineering, Architecture and IT. Yeah, that's me.
Cool. Dr. James Burt.
G'day all, I'm James, Bond University just down the road from Paul, and it'd be good to catch up actually. I think we're a similar kind of game.
I'm in Melbourne. I'm actually in Melbourne at the moment.
Oh, there you go. You're locked out of the state. Look, my area's in mobile mixed reality, and just currently preparing for our second trimester at Bond. So it's all guns are blazing with how I teach mobile mixed reality creation online. So that's essentially my role at the moment.
Yeah, it could be interesting. And next I have Ben.
So kia ora everyone. I'm Ben Sultani, and I'm lecturing in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at Massey University at the moment. And yeah, I am interested in research in learning and teaching, and I would like to learn more about mobile learning. So I'm here to basically learn from you.
Excellent. And Tom Worthington.
I better unmute myself. I'm Tom Worthington. I'm an honorary lecturer in computer science at the ANU in Canberra, and I've got, I think it's 179 final year project students at the moment. I'm trying to explain to them how to do lifelong learning and write a job application before they go out into the workforce. And we had our first online workshop this week, which at least worked. That's as much as I can say for it.
Right. Yeah, interesting times for everyone. And finally, at this point, we've got David.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, sorry, I've got just missed at the beginning. I had some issues on my laptop, so I'm having to do this from the phone. Anyway, David Sinfield, Auckland University of Technology here in Auckland, New Zealand. Work with Tom. many years. I teach, I'm a senior lecturer, and I teach graphic design and communication design, where Tom and I have introduced mobile technology and augmented reality and virtual reality to the program as well.
Great. Well, great to have everyone here for our webinar, and basically it's just a discussion really at this point. So I did ask everyone last week if they wanted to think of a little 2-minute tip, mobile learning tip that we could share, particularly for anyone who's just getting into mobile learning, might be interested. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start that off while everyone sort of thinks of what they're going to say. And I'm just going to share my screen.
Oh.
So hopefully you can see a map. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Okay. So one of the things I asked the SIG to do, so I posted this on our community forum, which is a Moodle forum, was to put themselves on the map. And so we see we've got a little bit of a geographical spread, which is great. New Zealand, obviously, Australia, Meredith and Paul haven't put themselves there yet, so we've got no one on the map there from Melbourne yet. So I encourage you to do that. I might need to email you the link. I'm not sure that, I think Meredith's in the community forum, but I'm not sure about Paul. And of course, we've got Neil all the way up in Japan. You need some friends up there, Neil. Anyway,
I just need friends generally.
Oh, we're here for you, Neil. So my 2-minute tip, I wanted to talk about how to create a QR code, which is, hopefully it's not too simple for people, but basically I use QR codes quite a lot when I'm presenting, and the reason why is just to make it easy for people with a mobile device to be able to access things like really, really long URLs, particularly when I'm sharing things like Google Docs or an Evernote, which their security tends to be, really, really long, random sort of a URL. So to make that easier for mobile users, I use QR codes. So the way I normally do that is I would say, find a link that I want to share. So in this case, say, just for an example, I'll find the link to this map. I'll copy it, the clipboard. I tend to use a URL shortener as well, so I can give 2 versions, a QR code and a shortened URL. And lately I've been using tinyurl. But in the QR code, I just use a web-based form. There are apps you can download to your phone to do this as well. You can do this straight from your mobile device. But I often just use this web form, which is zing.appspot.com. If you can just see the URL there. I'll post it into the chat later, zing.appspot.com. The good thing I like about the Zing App Spot is it gives you various formats that you can use to create a QR code from. So from a calendar event, contact information, so it can like a virtual card, an email address, a geolocation, phone number, an SMS, just a bunch of text, paragraph of text. Or, if you want to get people to sign on to Wi-Fi network really simply, you can make a QR code of the password and the network selection. But often I'll just use this for a URL. So choose the URL, paste the URL in there, and then it's not liking that one. But if I go generate, you can choose things like the size of it. Generally, I go large. Just because the larger it is, the easier it is to scan. And then you can right click on that, save the image, print it, embed it in your web page, wherever you want to put it. And I also normally do like a tinyurl version of the same link, just so for people who don't have a mobile device, they can just quickly write the URL down. So there we go. There's my 2-minute tip, using QR codes, using shortened URL makers to share links and just make them a bit more mobile friendly. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. Anyone else have a 2-minute tip they'd like to share?
Okay, I will.
Thank you, Lisa.
I've been sorry, getting quick. I've been looking at something called Office Lens, which is a nice free little app to be able to convert things like whiteboard notes into a nice accessible image. And you can do write over it, and you can do all sorts of things once you've got it down into your phone. So it actually kind of enhances the pictures of the whiteboards, and it's actually quite a nice little tool. Also done it for scanned documents, you know, just scanning something and playing around with it.
Great, thank you, Lisa.
What was that called, Lisa?
Office Lens.
Lisa's put it into the chat, so it's called Office Lens.
Oh, okay. Office Lens. Okay.
Sure. I'll go next, Tom. It's not an app, but it's something I did at presented at Sydney Uni when we were going through the online pivot. Which window am I sharing now? Hang on a minute. Okay. Can you see the screen? Can you see the Google Doc?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this was more about when we pivot online, we by default tend to focus on content. So my talk was about looking at why it's important to establish a learning community. And the biggest issue with going online is social isolation. So it's a huge factor for students. They feel disconnected, and because of that, the motivation level, engagement level is actually quite low. And if you just look at a MOOC, it's a perfect example, especially XMOOC, which is all about content in massive numbers. So in this doc, I pretty much highlighted quite a few mobile apps. Trying to establish a community. Probably the best tool that you can utilize in creating one is mobile, because that's what's with the students every time, almost 24/7. So I tried to focus. I know, Neil, you're looking at the picture of the elephant. Yeah, so it's one of those things. It's not just an online problem, but it's also a problem in our classroom. So I focused on a bit of theory, why it's important. But later down in the doc, I've got a few mobile apps like Tom has already shown Google Maps, but there's one, it's a replacement for Vine if you ever used it. So it's just bringing a bit of your personality, a bit of yourself, a bit of your social domain into the classroom in order to build relationship and such. So I'll show you an example. This is a video which I did of the place where I live at the moment. But just bringing a bit of flora and fauna into the class and sharing it with the students as a lecturer, quite a lot of what we do, quite a lot of what we model actually transfers over to the students. Just trying to set an example for the students and trying to get them connected. There are quite a few tools in the doc. I'll share the link and you can have a look.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. I've been looking for a replacement for Vine. Yeah.
Byte.co.
Not in the TikTok.
I haven't tried TikTok. Has anyone tried TikTok?
My daughter.
The kids have.
TikTok.
We're all a bit old.
I'm happy to go next, Tom.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Oh,
Okay.
and if you can post links into the chat for people. So I've also posted the link to the Google Map. So Paul Wiseman and Meredith, and Ben can add themselves to the Google Map while we're speaking. Okay, Dave.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. I'm sorry I was unable to connect to my laptop, so I'm unable to share my screen. There's a couple of things that I can talk about. We've been using a lot of an app called Layar with the students, Layar, which is a really easy to use application where you can use augmented reality. So we've got the students to design a poster, and the poster, where Tom spoke about QR codes earlier, what the layer does, you actually scan the whole of the poster. So the whole of the poster, whatever that design is, acts as the URL link. And it works in two ways. You can either have it as a direct link to a website, or you can actually embed augmented reality in the poster, which is really cool because it's like the poster, if it's designed correctly, actually comes alive off the wall. And I'm sorry I can't show you an example of that because I haven't got a link. But I know, Tom, you may have that in your files, perhaps somewhere you could.
Yeah. Perhaps next week we'll show a demo of that.
Yeah. Okay, that would be cool. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to share was what we did with Google Maps. Now I've just sent you the link, Tom. If you look in your emails, I don't know if you've got time just to open it up and perhaps share that screen. It was what we did with the students using Google Map, where they used their mobile phones to actually document areas of Manukau.
Yeah, it hasn't come through yet, but maybe we'll share that again next week.
Okay,
that's a good example.
Yep. All right, that's it.
Cool. So, Tom Worthington, did you have a 2-minute tip you wanted to share?
Let me turn on the microphone first, might help. Yes, so I've just posted a link into the chat. I've been using a tool called Content Samurai to make quick slideshow videos for students. So what you do is you take the text, you paste it into the tool, it will break that up into scenes, find open source video clips or still images, make a video out of it, and then narrate your script as audio. And then if you want to, you can add your own visual content, or you can do the narration yourself. But I've been using this when I'm sending the students a quick note. I wouldn't go to the trouble of recording a 5-minute video, but what I just do is take the text, paste into the tool, usually just put my own introductory slide and ending slide in, and leave whatever fanciful visual images the thing creates in between. And then I select the male Australian accent synthetic voice to narrate the video. And you can actually specify whether you want a widescreen desktop type video or you want a square one suitable for Instagram or something like that. It kind of fills the need.
Cool. Well, I think we'll leave the 2-minute tip there for today, and I know other people have some other 2-minute tips where we can share those next week. That'd be fantastic. So Paul Wiseman is now on our shared Google Map. Fantastic. And hopefully Meredith is putting herself on there as well. So I did ask Vikal and James to do a little sort of a brief 10-minute presentation as part of this webinar this week, and asked Vikal to do a bit of an overview of the special collection of research and learning technology, which is the ALT journal, the Association for Learning Technology in the UK, which the SIG has been doing a special collection of for the last 2 years, and this will be the 3rd year running that we've been adding to that special collection. And then I've asked James to give us a little brief overview. He did a part of the editorial, which hasn't quite been published yet, it's some copy editing, looked at the future of mixed reality and mobile learning, particularly in light of COVID-19. So over to Vikal and then over to James.
Thank you, Tom. Let me share the screen. There you go. Yeah, so for the special issue last year, we had 4 articles which were accepted. I think we had about 12, something like that overall, submitted for review. I'll go through the first one, and then I'll get Tom and James to talk about the papers they submitted, purely because they're here, and I think they'll probably do a better job than me. So the first paper looked at mobile virtual reality, mixed mobile reality, and they were looking at cognitive overload in sort of mixed mobile reality environments when the students are wearing a head mount. So they actually collected data from 63 students, and they went through 3 different learning experiences in a virtual environment using Microsoft HoloLens. And to measure if there was any sort of cognitive load or not, the authors actually theorized or used 2 frameworks, looking at motivation and self-efficacy as an indicator of whether there was any cognitive overload or not. And what they found in the paper was actually there was none. They couldn't find any correlation between the 2, and hence they concluded that it's maybe that the students learn how to negotiate the cognitive overload when they first experience a virtual sort of experience, by learning how to manage the environment, the overload of the different simulations and visual aspect. And they concluded that maybe they learn the skills and capability needed to navigate that sort of environment. So the next paper was from Tom. Tom, did you want to say something? I think it was using paramedics and mixed mobile enhanced simulation.
No, you can do just a really brief summary, or else I'll be talking too much.
So this was a 2-year project. This is purely based on design-based research. So Tom, Stephen, Claudio, and a few other colleagues at Auckland Uni, they looked at exploring mixed mobile reality in paramedic education and creating simulations for the students. So with paramedic education, students hardly get to experience sort of anything close to your real world experience. Say for example, in road accident, things like that. So there's quite a lot of things that mixed mobile reality can bring in for the students into a classroom experience. However, so as part of the DBR process, Tom and co started with looking at a set of design principles, which we embedded and evaluated over a 2-year period. And they collected different sorts of data, actually using quite a lot of different data collection methods. And one of them was using wearable technology, so measuring or getting biometric data and analyzing that. And of course, the conclusion was that mixed mobile reality or VI offers significant learning opportunities for students in paramedic and any sort of medical simulation. And then they refined the design principles. So it's actually a really extensive study that adds quite a lot of value to designing mixed mobile reality for students in an educational setting. The next one was from James and his colleague at Bond Uni. James, did you want to say something?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm trying to grab some photos off my phone for my 10-minute presentation. Oh geez, now I've got to remember what that one was all about. So in this particular paper, we looked at the introduction of virtual and augmented reality into a construction education class. What I'll be showing you in a moment is sort of the next version on from that. But essentially, in construction, they're starting to use what's known as BIM models, or building information models, which is essentially a hybrid of a architectural visualization and the underpinning data models. So it might be data about the materials, data about lighting, data about workflow when buildings will be phased in, et cetera, et cetera. And the complexity of that is that traditionally they teach that through orthographic plan drawings and traditional didactic delivery methodology. And so what we looked at was the introduction of building information models into those classes. In this particular case, it was a postgraduate class predominantly of Chinese students, and looked at their experience in relation to the use of those tools. And we conducted a thematic analysis of that and presented the results in this particular paper. And what I'll show you in my slides is the next iteration of that to move away from using tools in the classroom to getting them outside of the classroom.
Thank you, James. That's actually a really good segue into the next paper, which was from Claudio, Chris, and Tom, and this looked at ecological literacy. So this is for students or anyone visiting, go back to that. It's about ecological literacy, but it's helping students build, or anyone, any citizen of a country, build knowledge about sustainability. But this was a project again. I think it's a two-year long project based on design-based research. So starting with a set of design principles in creating a mixed mobile reality experience for the students. And this, the data was mostly collected from students and parents who were visiting a reserve center in Auckland. So this is a marine reserve. So there's a visiting center, and they'll go there, and before the intervention, the students would actually just go in and look at videos, look at objects, look at marine preserved lives in the visiting center. So this research was based on augmenting that using mixed mobile reality and getting students to experience what it's like to actually be inside, swimming with the fish, looking at the marine reserve, marine life, and what we can learn from that. So this is mostly about learning outside of the classroom. So they quite a lot of frameworks were used, like pedagogy, which is all about self-determined learning. Bring your own device, so students would use their own phones, iPads. So this was students were mostly visiting the center. These were schools who were mostly iPad centric, so they had a device with them. In using other self-determined learning theories. So this was implemented. First phase was actually collecting data from the students, looking at what sort of intervention could be designed. The second was the implementation of the intervention, which was evaluated and refined based on the design principle, but also looking at how and what the students gain from that another layer of mixed mobile reality experience. Think the overall outcome was that it did add quite a lot of authentic learning experiences for the students, but there is still potential to do more. You can read more about it in the paper.
Cool.
James?
Thank you, Vikal. So the URL for research and learning technology is just research and learning technology. If you stick that into Google, you'll find the journal page, or you can see it linked off the alt site. Okay, we're over to James for the future.
You can access the paper.
Great.
Okay,
Right,
let me share a screen. Right, does everyone see that? Oh, hang on. Does everyone see that?
Yes.
Here it comes, yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so some thoughts on the future. So I mentioned before about how we were exploring the way that we teach some of our students, and I thought I would share a couple of photographs of, for some reason they're not coming up on my screen, hang on, of, like, can you see that photo there?
Yeah.
Yep. So that's essentially what a traditional classroom will look like for teaching building information modeling. Pod tables, 50, 60 students in a room, lecturers around the room offering up their thoughts about certain types of things. And we started to think, well, there has to be a better way of engaging students and teaching them around building information models and structures. So what we did was we built a mobile application. In this case, it was using the BIM model of our sustainable development building here on campus. So we took the building information model that underpinned that particular building, and this has multiple layers in it, including mechanical layers, air conditioning layers, piping layers, the architectural model layer, lighting layers, etc. And we built that all into a mobile app that works on iPhone and on Android. Now, for while we could teach students online, we had them walking around the building and augmenting that building using the underpinning mobile application. They could use their iPads, their iPhones. You can see the lovely joy on their faces as they're getting out of the classroom and actually participating. And it was interesting with 50 students walking around academic offices and all the academics actually enjoying the experience of having students actually participating in their space. So they really enjoyed that side of things. But of course, with COVID-19, things have had to change. And so now students can position the building on the grass outside their rooms and be able to use these things in situ of their own environments. And so we actually have some data from the first round that we ran in 201, which is our first trimester of 2020, which was of them experiencing the building using the mobile app. And now we're going to be running a second stage of the study online, where the students will be exploring the building from their own living room or out in their yard, and being able to sort of compare the data points between those. So I guess that segues into my thoughts on the future of mobile mixed reality. And here is an example where you can visualize the layers and in this case, simulate the various components. So there is so many interesting new pieces of technology coming onto the marketplace. We have Apple and their new iPads introducing LiDAR scanning into their iPads. We have depth sense cameras coming into the latest versions of the iPhone and in the Samsung S20 Ultra. There's so many new things coming in, including 5G, etc. But oftentimes the technology tends to get showcased more so than the pedagogy that underpins it. And we can see that with a lot of the issues that the tech companies are having in trying to translate these innovative new products into purchasing sales. We've seen declines in purchasing sales for smartphone devices, and they're trying to jam every little gimmick and toy that they can in there to try to sell units. So it's part of our role to be able to say, well, we have access to these new technologies. How can we utilize them? But also in considering the fact that most students don't have access to these new innovations, and that we need to really think about what we can deploy to students that will work on devices that are several generations old, and not just always chasing the latest innovative factor that the developers have put into their particular systems. So I guess in this time of COVID, it's always difficult to predict the future, and Gartner tries to do that every year with their emerging tech cycle. But we have, rise and fall of different technologies over time, and some tend to sit in that trough of disillusionment. And I think virtual and augmented reality, along with mixed reality, is probably sitting down in that trough of disillusionment, maybe eking its way up every now and then. But we always need to think about, what support is available and other things. And we can see that things shift and change. This is a picture from my office of me throwing out my Samsung Gear VRs because everyone has given up support for them. So we tend to go and buy all of these things and try to implement them. And actually in that paper that was presented in the special issue, we use the Samsung Gear VRs to get people involved in single and multi-user environments. But the fact is that it's now discontinued technology. So we have to be very mindful about how we chase the latest and greatest, and think a little bit about what is accessible to our learners and is actually impactful and meaningful. So I guess if we can say that COVID-19 has taught us anything, and that is that indeed there is an appetite and a necessity for communicative technology, be that mobile or stationary like we're using here in front of our webcams, but that we need to better understand how our institutions, how our providers support and manage that technology to actually get that into the hand of learners and be useful. So I guess I would leave with this final picture here, which is that I don't think that the future of mobile mixed reality is driven through technology innovation alone. It's part of it, but rather we need to think a little bit about the understanding of the innovation, about how we manage that change, especially in our classroom, that we need to integrate that learner-centered design methodology, that we need to educate our academics, that we have to have a literacy of understanding, and that we need to have an increased capacity to support the deployment of these different devices and applications. And I guess the big one is how we manage complexity and change. And there's a picture of me working, teaching my daughter part of her dance lesson in the media room at home, which is now being converted into a children's playroom. So I thought I'd leave on that note.
Cool. Hey, thanks, Vikal. Thanks, James. And great to have your thoughts on where we've been and where we're going. So I think that kind of is pretty much our time for today. We don't want to go so long that we start boring people, but it's been great to have everyone's input and great to have a couple of new people on board this week. And if you think there's anyone else that would be really benefit from sort of a webinar discussion format around mobile learning, then feel welcome to invite them along for next time. We'll also share the recording of this session on YouTube and paste the link as well. So thank you very much, everyone. There's a Google Doc, which we've also created that I've shared via the community forum from Moodle. If you go to community.sotel.nz and choose the ASCILITE Mobile Learning SIG, you'll find the links there. And on that Google form, people can post their ideas on webinar topics and 2-minute topics as well. So thank you, everyone, for contributing today. And I think I'll finish the recording there.
Oh, just before you go,
yeah.
Vikal.
Yes.
Have yourself changed rooms?
Me?
No, you see, I was in the garage last time. Yourself changed rooms now.
Yes.
I'm in my cell. I thought you'd like that. The prison cell.
David's being very mobile. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone.